Hello, everybody. Welcome. Elizabeth Johnston here of Own Your Creativity, and I'm super excited today to be talking to joint venture expert Jay Fiset. So
Hello.
I came across the idea of or the concept of joint ventures about a little over a year ago, and it was through your community. And when I encountered the phrase joint venture, what it conjured up in my mind was this huge playing field where giant businesses engaged in mergers and acquisitions, and it was all something like way beyond me, and I since have realized that that's not the case. But I'd love it if you would explain your definition of what joint ventures are.
Perfect. Well, I mean, what you started with is certainly true, but it doesn't preclude anyone from participating in a joint venture. And our view about that, just to be perfectly clear, is that a joint venture is when one or more people or organizations come together and they contribute their individual network, wisdom, resources, and experiences, and put those together to come up with an offer, to come up with a product, service, or experience for one another's clients. And then based upon what the input was, then we split either the proceeds or the rewards. And it need not be a huge, big legal definition of a merger and acquisition. It could be something just as simple as, hey, you host me on your Facebook page and we'll have a discussion sharing about joint ventures. I'll host you on my page. We'll have a discussion sharing about writing and what it means to get a book out into the world. And in both cases, we serve each other's tribes, and we have effectively done one of the simplest and easiest joint ventures in the entire universe. So think of it as simple as, hey, I want to share Elizabeth's message with my tribe because many of them are going to write books. And we figured out a way in which that's fair and equitable to both. And please hear this, the guiding principle is to solve our clients' problems better, knowing full well that we don't have the ability to solve them all.
Yeah, and I think that there's a really profound philosophy that underpins everything that you do. And that really sets you apart because again, when I thought about joint ventures, I thought about a really highly competitive environment where, dog eats dog. And your philosophy is not like that at all. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, Lord, no. I think, boy, I can go on a long meandering rant about this, so I'll try and keep it tight. Which is simply this, is that I think most of the foundation of competition in small business and entrepreneurship is actually a fundamental flaw in people's way of thinking about business and way of thinking about life. And we choose to believe that there is an abundance of everything: time, money, resources, clients, energy, contribution, love, support. You insert it. It applies to everything. And from the foundation of abundance, we also take another stand, and this is a little bit tangential, but I'll just explain it, is that every single client has like a expiry date stamped upon their forehead. And it's that time at which they think they've got everything that you have to give. Now, usually I think most of the time they've got about 10% of what you got to give, but they're pretty sure they got it all. But that's another conversation to the tangent. And so it just makes sense to begin to acknowledge and to recognize and to understand that our clients are going to be looking for more. They're going to be looking for their next step. They're going to be looking to solve their next problem. And if we've built a relationship with them, for goodness sakes, why don't we help them solve that and get paid for that process as well? So if we can come to entrepreneurship, and if we can come to community, if we can come to serving our clients from this perspective of there's an abundance, and it's just my job to help my clients solve their problems, which, by the way, might be me, or it might be somebody else. Both ways are good. It just makes the entire experience, number one, more fun. Number two, less stress. Number three, more profitable. So, our brand is JVology, the perfect mix of people, fun, and profit. And in that order.
One of the things that I started doing in the spring, and I've done I've done your challenge, which we'll talk about in a few moments. I've done that 3 times now, and each time I get so much out of it. And I'm really looking forward to the 4th time.
You and me both.
But in the spring, what I started doing was this reciprocal, like I'll have you on my Facebook Live and they have me on theirs, or sometimes it's not even directly reciprocal, like I'll do a Facebook Live and they'll do something else, or, the other way around. And it really broadened my sense of connection, and also service to my client. Because before I took your challenge, I didn't realize that I could actively cultivate relationships with other entrepreneurs so that I help my client, whether it's upstream or downstream, which is something we'll talk about in a minute too. But that was just so eye-opening, and it felt so good to be able to help my clients in a different way. And so in your challenge that's coming up, people are going to be exposed to that upstream, downstream, and that kind of relationship. Can you talk a little bit about the upcoming challenge?
I absolutely can. Can I ask you a question first?
Yeah.
Okay. So this idea of that shift of serving your clients, what I heard there is a phrase that I use a lot when I'm interviewed, which is that it is the shift from becoming a service provider, if I do this one thing for my clients, to becoming a trusted advisor to my clients.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to what your experience of that shift is, because I actually think that is the foundation to, I'm going to say, entrepreneurship, just working from a far easier place. And I'm just curious what your experience of that was, and did I interpret that correctly?
Yeah, you definitely interpreted that correctly. And, in the post leading up to talking to you, but also, promoting the 5-day challenge that's coming up, one of the things that I said was like, make your entrepreneurial journey easier. And that's what I feel, has happened by, encountering you. And so it's made it easier, but also that mindset shift from just like, doing my thing, but also, like you say, being an advisor. And I've been doing masterminds with people and taking a leadership position. And, it's really transformed how I approach my business. And it's easier because I'm not carrying the load all by myself. But it's so much more joyful too. It's just lovely to interact with people and know you're not alone in the journey, and that there's people who can help you.
Isn't that the truth? Absolutely. Cool. I love hearing that. I was like, I just got to check to see if that's the case. Okay. So your question to me, which was about the challenge. So here's the thing we do. And I, frankly, if you hadn't said it, I wouldn't have known how many times we've done it, but apparently it's 4. And what the challenge is a free think of it like a free 5-day mini course, but it's not just a mini course, because it actually delivers real results. So we call it the Joint Venture Jumpstart, 5 partners in 5-day challenge. And the truth of the matter is, the very first time we did it, it was, one of those little experimental pieces. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur who's like, well, let's try it. Who the hell knows? So and we'll figure it out. And it actually really took off. And basically what happens is, and by the way, if any of you are thinking you'd like to become more of a trusted advisor, you'd like to solidify and have consistent leads coming in the front end of your business, you'd like to have recurring passive income on the back end of your business. Quite literally, I don't know, I was just looking down. I don't know if you caught that because my camera's up here and my computer's here. I was looking down because I got a little notification that one of my JV partners just sent me money. And
wow.
Exactly. It's like, those are just good little things to, just as the day goes along, it's like, great, somebody sent cash. I don't, because it was the email flash, I don't know how much, I'm a little curious, but I'll stay here. Yes. But on a serious note, the 5-day challenge takes the fundamentals of what it takes to succeed in your business through the process of joint ventures. So we address some of the beliefs and the ideas in terms of what it takes to shift from service provider to trusted advisor, what it takes to shift from competition to collaboration, what it takes to become more inclusive and abundant so that all these things work. Then we work on some of the basic fundamentals, this upstream, downstream idea. And I'll give kind of the chapter title to it, which is this. And this took me a long time to figure out. Like, I was probably doing joint ventures for 2 years before it was like, hey, there's a little bit of strategy that I had missed. And here's what it boils down to is this. Each and every one of us as entrepreneurs, we solve a problem or a small set of problems. And the truth is, we have been taught to go and look for somebody who has that problem. And we have this kind of narrow laser vision. It's like, who is the problem? Who is the problem? Who is the problem? And my belief is, and what I discovered in the process is, that's a silly question. It's what everybody's told to do, but it's silly because it keeps us focused at who has the problem. The better question to ask is this: who causes that problem, or who reveals that problem and does so at some scale, meaning like not just one at a time, but it's like, I'll use an example. A coach certification organization. By the way, is my video all jumpy on your end?
Nope.
No,
you're
okay.
perfect.
All right. It's just my, I think it's just probably my Apple TV thing being weird. So who causes or reveals that problem? So in my case, for JVology, the perfect mix of people, fun, and profit, there's a ton of people who are entering the digital online space to sell a book, to distribute a course, to get intellectual property out into the world. And it's like, wait a second, I wrote my book, I did my digital course, I've got my offering, I have this intellectual property, but nobody's seeing it. What the heck do I do? Well, the truth of the matter is, I set up joint ventures with, these are called upstream partners, with publishers, with coach certification schools, with, you insert the blank, all these things that churn out not one or two, but quite literally hundreds, in some cases thousands of perfectly qualified clients, because like, great, I've got this intellectual property, my book, my course, all of those pieces. Now, how do I get it seen? It's like, well, you should go talk to Jay at JVology, because he'll introduce you to his community of, depending on which course you're at. If you're at like JVology Live, I introduce you to like 250 people live. If it's in the challenge, the challenges have been averaging somewhere in the 600 to 1200 people range. And he'll introduce you and help you structure your business so that people want to share you. And it's like, oh, hey, that works. So instead of going, it's like, who needs leads? It's like, well, why don't we just go to who creates that problem? Who diagnoses that problem? And we set up strategic relationships with those folks. And that is how the system works. Now, of course, each and every one of us, when we solve a problem, we also create a litany of others. And that's what we call downstream partners. And the downstream partners are, that's kind of strange. Just bear with me a second. I have a video call coming in on a different camera. Close that, get that out of there. We're a little busy. So the downstream piece is, well, if I cause, I say, hey, this is what joint ventures look like. This is what this process requires. I'm now causing a bunch of problems for people, which is like, well, wait a second. Now I have to learn what is an affiliate link. Now I have to understand, how do we calculate commissions? Now I have to understand, how do I actually do a decent joint venture invitation? Now I have to understand all these pieces. So those folks become my downstream partners. And all I'm trying to do in the simplest of forms is to, instead of focus on me and my magic trick and the thing I can do for a client, I'm trying to look at the entire client journey. And what does the client really genuinely need to succeed and to thrive in their life and in their business? And those are the folks that I create joint ventures with. And that was a little bit wordy and long, but I hope the chapter titles make some sense.
Yeah, definitely. When I did the challenge the first time around, I was so exhilarated because I've always come with an abundant mindset and felt that there was more pie to go around. Everybody, there's enough pie for everybody. And looking back, I did sort of organize joint venture type events. But it wasn't until I was introduced to your community that I realized, like, oh, this is a thing. It's not something, that I kind of, did once by accident or something. That's actually a thing. And you can really leverage your business and your relationships in a systematic way. So, but I was overwhelmed the first time I went through, partly because It's awesome. It really is. And but also because I didn't have my avatar down, or like who I was serving. And so I would have these great conversations with people, but I just like didn't really know like what to do next. And it wasn't until I did it the second and third time that it was like, okay, I just have to decide who I'm serving. And then as soon as I made that decision, all of a sudden the upstream and the downstream became so much easier. Just like it was just like that. And so I could see, like, you know, for me, yes, it's actually in health and wellness industry, and you know, the coaches, and they need to differentiate themselves with the book, and then after I help them write the book, then they need somebody to publish it or make the cover, or you know, and so my downstream. So it I got so much more out of it, you know, once I had that piece in place. Is there something that you can recommend people before they go in to the challenge that they need to have in place to get the most out of it?
Yes, that would be absolutely fantastic. So for me, the way I like people to think about that is simply this. What is the problem that you solve? And if they can't say it in a sentence, figuring out upstream and downstream is difficult. So you started a slightly different way. This is who I'm going to serve, and then the problem I'm going to solve. But honest to goodness, my favorite piece is the other way around of just what problem do I solve? So the problem I solve is I provide a steady stream of leads, community support, and recurring income. That's the problem that I solve. So entrepreneurial success. So if we can't like articulate that clearly, it's very difficult to do the upstream and the downstream. So I would say just start with, number one, register for the challenge. Even if you're confused, it's going to be a lot, but it'll peel away enough layers that you'll get to the heart of it, exactly as Elizabeth did. But if you can start the challenge from, this is the problem I solve, and then all of the other pieces, I promise, will fall into place. Because how do I put this? Sometimes when we're really good at solving one problem, and we've been doing it just for one group of people for a very long time, is that we think it's about the people. And I strongly suggest just a couple of steps back. What is the problem you solve? And then we start thinking about it as like, is there a more strategic way or a more strategic audience that also has this problem that we could serve at a higher level, that we could perhaps charge more money for, that has a greater margin, that is more aligned with my vision and contribution to the world? So I think for most people, start with the problem. The rest of it we will take care of in 5 days, and you will end that 5 days with at least 5 partners. Kimberly Hobscheid last time ended with 37 partners in 5 days from our free challenge.
I know, she's a machine.
Oh, that is an understatement of the universe. So yeah, it is pretty wild.
It is. Yeah, you can make so many connections, and it really broadened my perspective of who I could play with, to use your term. One of the things that I struggle with is to, for sales. And I think a lot of creatives, a lot of authors shy away from sales and are not comfortable with it. So I started making connections through JVology with sales professionals, and I would have conversations with them. I do Facebook Lives with them to pick their brains about how I could be better in sales, and through that process I become more comfortable, and then stepping into my authority position, but also realizing that when you make those connections, and I for me, I didn't think it was a direct connection, but some of those people referred people to me, and now they're clients of mine. And so a year ago, I never would have thought about that as a viable path to business. But the JVology challenge really opened up new doors for me. That was really unexpected. So could you talk about how authors and author entrepreneurs could benefit by joining the challenge?
Well, first and foremost, authors and entrepreneurs, and I know there's a whole range from fiction to autobiographies to intellectual how-to all of those pieces. So I'm going to answer fairly broadly and then try and specify. So top of the list is this. One of the core fundamentals that we teach at JVology is A joint venture is a game of I'll go first. And what that simply means is, how do we build the relationship? How do we contribute? How do we become relevant? How do we make a difference? How do we make our joint venture partner look fantastic in the eyes of their tribe and their community? And here's one of the things I want everyone to hear. One of the greatest joint ventures in the universe is sharing a book campaign. Because the truth of the matter is this, is it is simple, it is easy. And in the digital world, we can get distribution instantly. And excuse me, when a book is written that feeds the, what I'm going to call the purpose or the intention or the reason for a community's existence, your JV partner looks like a rock star sharing it. You get instant credibility because you get, not only are you an author, you get to borrow the credibility of the community leader that you are serving, and then a little bit of work and follow-up, and you have a distribution channel that will knock your freaking socks off. So that to me is point number one. Then point number two is, and by the way, I'm a best-selling author. I wrote a book called Reframe Your Blame, How to Be Personally Accountable about 15 years ago. We've sold about 27,000 copies of it now.
Wow.
Yeah, and as a self-published thing, that ain't a bad job.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I think back when I originally did it, they said that the average self-published book sold 37 copies, and that half of that was to their family.
Right.
And I used to tease, it's like, my mom enjoys all 24,000 copies that she bought. She's got a very big garage. But on a serious note, though, in terms of joint ventures and those pieces, I fervently believe that basically everyone who ever writes a book, particularly if it has some intellectual property component to it, if there's some life lessons component to all the rest of it, that should also go into a digital program. And that digital program, and please understand this, the same content that's in the book for 15 bucks that you slaved over. And I'm not a very good writer. So when I say slaved, my experience was slaving over. For some of you, I know that is a joy and passion and an aligned thing. And I'm pretty sure you must drink. I don't know how that happens otherwise. It's a little crazy to me. But let's just say that you worked diligently at the creation of that book. That exact same content, reformatted into a digital program, instead of being $15, is now $197, $497. Hell, I know people have done it for $2,000. It's exactly the same content, with a little bit of access to the author and that creator. So to me, that would be one of those things. And if you're sitting there going like, well, how the hell would I do that? Well, what you would do is you'd create a joint venture relationship with a person and a partner who would help you do all of those pieces, and you would likely split the money. You provided the content, somebody does the structuring, you guys sell it jointly, and you split the money. Ta-da! And honest to goodness, I just firmly believe anyone who is a great writer, a good writer, who has a message that has to come to the world, is that the way the world is today, you've got to get it out there in multiple formats. And let's figure out how we get those multiple formats to actually make you some great money. That to me is, and there's many other strategies, particularly at the front end for what I would call sponsorship and joint ventures, whether that be digital tools, whether that be a referral to a coach, whether that be a referral to a coach certification school, there's a ton of opportunities. Once we start thinking about this, it's like, wait a second, if my book is actually going to get consumed, what do we do with that? Can I share one weird little strategy? Please. Okay. So when I wrote my book, and by the way, a large part of how we sold that many books was that we didn't sell one book at a time. We sold packs of 5 and packs of 10. And the deal around that whole piece was you could buy a package of 5, give that book away, and that book represented a ticket to our personal development program, which at the time was called the Personal Best Course. And quite literally, they would come and do a course that we'd been selling for $1,000 for, I don't know, probably 4 years prior to that, and then at $497 for like 15 years prior to that. And what transpired was, from the book, they came and did the course for free. And then it was like, hey, if you want to continue on in this process, this is how this goes, and this is how this looks. Now that book with, I wish I'd kept better track, honestly. Let's just call it 26,000. Way back when we were sitting at the 15,000, 18,000 range, we'd already monetized the book to the tune of about $2.5 million.
Wow. That's amazing.
And it is. And just to be clear about this, is that book went back to our personal development program. But you don't have to have a personal development program to do that. You could have your book that refers to someone or something else's program, and maybe it's not going to be $2 million. Maybe it'd be $20,000 or $2,000 or $200,000, any of which would be a hell of a lot better than what most people make with a book.
Yeah.
So yeah. In fact, you got to buy the 37 copies to give to your family.
Exactly.
But on a serious note, those are some of the ways in which we used joint ventures between different organizations to, number one, distribute the message, monetize the message, and to feed and to fuel other opportunities.
Awesome. I'm so excited. So we need to wrap up because I know you're a busy guy. But is there any, last minute thing that you would like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Well, I think it gets back, Elizabeth, to this idea of a joint venture as a game of I'll go first. And that is why we do the 5-day challenge. The truth of the matter is, I'll toot our own horn with this for a little bit. In our community is a brilliant woman named Alina Vincent. I would say she's probably perfected this 5-day model. And she has taught it to thousands of people. And her clients say to me repeatedly that this is the best 5-day challenge that they've ever experienced or participated in, from the perspective of content, the perspective of connection, and the perspective of results.
Yeah.
So when I say we did a pretty damn good job, frankly, given that we're Canadian, with all Canadian humility, we knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I'm back for the 4th time.
Yes.
And so I encourage everybody to sign up. And the link is in the description. I'll post it below the video as well. And come play with us next week.
Yes. And just to put the bow on that is that this 5-day challenge is our contribution to anyone who's interested in exploring this idea. It's like, look, you don't have to buy a damn thing. Come and experience it, get the results before you ever pay for anything, get those results and then decide, it's like, hey, do you want to do something else with us? Because we'd love you to, but let us start by giving to you first. And it's just one of the ways in which, as an organization, we get to walk our talk. You get to come and play with both Elizabeth and I. We will both be there live, participating, engaged in the community. And you're going to have access to if we do our averages, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 800 to 1,000 people who are in the same process. And even if you are asleep at the wheel, you'll still leave with 5 partners in 5 days if you do the work.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, I'm done.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time, Jay.
My pleasure, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me.